Karen Brennan. She's a certified holistic nutritionist and emotion code practitioner.
I'm a nutritionist. I'm holistic, so that means we look at the whole body. I'm also board certified in holistic nutrition. So I've been doing this for about 5-6 years now, and I love it. I used to be in long-term care and used to be a social worker, so this has been a really nice transition for me. I was always interested in nutrition, so I was a very sick kid. I was either, if I didn't have an ear infection, I had strep throat. I was in and out of the hospital. I mean, I was just unhealthy. And it really started with, I have the autoimmune condition psoriasis. And so it really started with that. And this is the late 70s. My parents took me to a nutritionist, which back then was really unheard of. And I went on a diet to really get rid of the psoriasis because the medications weren't working, the creams weren't working. So I knew back then I had an interest in nutrition, and I saw how effective it was. And then fast forward to when my youngest son was 3 years old, and I had him on antibiotics literally for 3 years straight because the ear doctor told me to do that for his ear infections. Literally no stop. We just rotated 4 antibiotics to the point that he had yeast coming out of his ears. And so, this was back before I can look everything up on the computer. And so I had to go to health food stores and learn, and found a doctor that would help me. And so, my first introduction to leaky gut, which I thought was some made up term back then, and put him on a yeast-free, sugar-free diet for a full year, and really saw improvement in him from everything from 3 years old, from the behavioral issues and just all the signs of candida, of overgrowth of yeast. So then fast forward much, much further, my other son had issues, but we never really put it together. So what really got me into nutrition was my son, about a month shy of being 16 years old, had a suicide attempt. And I will be honest with you, I think I was one person before that, and I'm a completely different person today. And so we did the whole mainstream medicine, what to do to get him better. And you really see what they have to offer, and it's not much. And it's kind of sad. So I just knew in my gut I had to do more. And so I just started researching, and my son will tell you he got better, but he'll tell you he doesn't even know what I did to get him better because I had no clue what I was doing. I mean, I just researched, and I just did everything for him. So then I knew, I'm like, okay, I need to go back to school. I need to figure out what's going on with him, how I can get him even better. And then, then it just kind of went from there and helping other people. So that's how I got into this. So I think everybody has their own personal story. So it's been an incredible journey, and I'm really happy for where I am today. So what I'm going to say even before I start this slide is that I'm not a doctor, so I don't treat, cure, or diagnose, and that, we're going to talk about some herbs and things today, but I want you all to be mindful that, you're not clients. I don't know your history, so always check with your health professional. This is just for educational purposes. But one thing I want to touch on that I want you to keep in your mind is that while I'm not a doctor and I can't diagnose, treat, or cure for obvious reasons, your doctor's not a nutritionist, but your doctor can legally give you nutrition advice. And I want you to take your doctor's nutrition advice with a grain of salt, because often what happens is I have to clean up a lot of things that doctors have said to their patients that really are very poor nutrition advice. So I always like to say that first for you to keep that in mind, because I hear so many stories from my clients, what their doctors have said. And yeah, we have to pick up the pieces. So, but anyhow, let's dive in. So what I want to say here is that right now with COVID-19, I think a lot of people are afraid, and a lot of people have fear. They're just so scared of this virus. And yes, this virus is a little more potent than some other viruses, but we are surrounded by viruses every single day. We are surrounded, by germs all the time. And so we shouldn't be afraid of them. They are just they're part of us. They're a part of the world that we're in. And you need to look at instead at you, not at the virus, but you. What health is your body in? And then how can you support your body? Because the stronger your body is, and if there's a pathogen out there, you're going to be able to protect yourself if you have a strong immune system, if you are very healthy. If you don't have a strong immune system, then yes, that pathogen is going to be more dangerous to you. But let's not fear it. Instead, let's work on the body instead. Okay. What weakens the immune system? I think a lot of these are common sense. For instance, I think we all know that the standard American diet, right? It's a very nutrient deficient diet. So that is automatically going to weaken the immune system because you're not getting enough nutrients to support your body. So that goes right into nutrient deficiencies. But you can also have nutrient deficiencies if you have dysbiosis or you have other gut issues. And I want to stress that because some people say, I'm eating a whole foods diet, I'm doing everything right, I don't understand what's wrong. And the reason could be is because we need to do a lot of gut work. So, just keep that in mind. Or say you have low stomach acid, or you're on a proton pump inhibitor, which is going to deplete your stomach acid. And then you cannot break down and utilize a lot of your nutrients. So prevention is key. Again, you don't fear the virus. Instead, look at you and what you can do to be a healthy person. What is your weakest link? This is really important because a lot of people hear, oh, my friend went in this diet, or my friend took this supplement and they felt wonderful, or they had all these results. You are very different from your friend, from even your family members. So you need to look at what in you need to address. For instance, immune system, you may think, okay, well, I want to support my immune system. I'm just going to add in some vitamin C, some zinc. But if you have an underlying health condition, those nutrients may not even be effective for you. You need to address that underlying condition first. So for instance, if you have an autoimmune condition, we really need to work on what's the root cause for that. Or if you have asthma, right, we need to work on the lung support and the gut support for that. Or if you never can sleep well, you have to take medication to sleep every night, right? We need to address that. So again, remember, all through this, you are an individual, and we have to address you like an individual, completely different than someone else. So if we're going to talk on what weakens the immune system, as you saw from that list, there are so many different things, but I would say stress is probably the number one thing besides the standard American diet that is going to weaken your immune system. And in today's society, I'm sure everybody here knows that we just have chronic stress. We have stress over and over. And typically what happened, if you go back to prehistoric times, right, there was a stressful situation. They were running from, a saber-toothed tiger, their cortisol went up, their adrenaline went up, and then it all went back to baseline. And what happens now is we never go back to baseline. We have stress, it goes down a little bit, we have more stress, our cortisol or adrenaline goes up. And this really is just over time is going to weaken your immune system. So think about it. If you're running from that saber-toothed tiger, right, your body doesn't know right now if you're running from a saber-toothed tiger or if you're dealing with, stress at work. But you need energy for that. So you're gonna use up more B vitamins, or more vitamin C, more magnesium. So whenever you're under stress, you need to probably add those in supplement form, or really focus and make sure you're getting a very good whole foods diet to get those in there, because you're really eating them up. The other thing is, when you're under chronic stress, we already know it weakens the immune system, but here's some other things that are related to that that's going to further weaken your immune system. So when you're under that stress, your body sees you needing more carbs for energy. And what happens then, you start to crave all the carbs, right? You're not running from that tiger, but your body's like, oh my gosh, I need energy. You go for the carbs, you start going for the processed carbs. Most people that are stressed are not going, for the carrots, they're going for the crackers and the chips and the chocolate. what happens as well is then when your cortisol is disrupted, your sleep gets disrupted. A lot of people will describe it as wired and tired. Their body feels exhausted at bedtime and they want to sleep, but they're actually wired. The mind cannot turn off. And a lot of times that's a cortisol issue as well. But it's going to disrupt everything in the body. So as you can see from the slide, I won't go into everything. But the one thing I do want to touch on is when you're stressed, everything slows down. Your digestion will slow down. So that is going to weaken your immune system more because maybe you're eating a really nice meal, but you're not utilizing and absorbing those nutrients because now digestion is so poor because of the stress. And then your immune system will also be impacted. So hopefully everybody can see how this is kind of a vicious cycle with stress. And then going right into the sleep, as I talked about, stress automatically is going to impact your sleep. I haven't heard anybody who's under a lot of stress, but they say, yeah, I hit the pillow at 10 and I don't wake up, till 6 or 7 the next day. I mean, you just don't hear that. So we know that stress impacts the sleep. But the other thing is, what I see is that everybody thinks, oh, I just need melatonin for sleep. And there's many things that can disrupt your sleep and cause sleep issues. And so you really need to start figuring out what it is. So it could be a blood sugar issue. It could be your blood sugar is just imbalanced. And what will happen is people wake up the same time every night. And that's because your blood sugar has dipped so low. Your body's waking you up and saying, hey, I need to get that blood sugar up. And maybe you say, I always need to eat a snack, in the middle of the night. And it could be that. But it could be just, my teenage clients, I always ask them, where is your phone at bedtime? It's literally right under the pillow. And I have to tell them, you've got to move the phone, that could really be disrupting your sleep. And usually they don't want to. But we know all of that, that blue light and everything at bedtime disrupts sleep. So some of it's common sense, but I think the majority of people have, sleep issues at least a few times a week. I don't hear too often that people have no sleep issues. Just something we really need to work on in order if we're going to support our immune system. Yeah, so think about it. So your cortisol should be at its highest in the morning. Cortisol should be getting you out of bed in the morning. You should be ready to go in the morning. And then your cortisol should be much lower at night and your melatonin should be rising. So, we have this nice cycle through the day. So what happens when we're stressing that cortisol is so high, some ways to get it down. So we're going to talk about the adaptogens, which is one that I love, but there's something else we call PS100. So it's phosphatidylserine and it's 100 milligrams. So we just say PS100 and people can look that up. And that is wonderful. So for instance, when I was doing more talks in person, if I'm doing one at night, I find I still have a lot of energy at night. Maybe my cortisol is a little too high because I was working so late. I will take a PS100 usually on those nights just to help me unwind, get my cortisol back in balance at bedtime. So that's a really nice way to do it. And there's a product called Serifos, Seripos. The original formula, and that's also a wonderful supplement that people can take if they're having that wired and tired and they can't sleep at night. Or another helpful one is GABA. So they can use pharma GABA. And so GABA is one of your neurotransmitters. It's one of your calming ones. They can add that in. And then the other thing that I love, hopefully most people know about, is magnesium. So as I talked about how your body's going to use it more magnesium, that's also tied to sleep. And so the majority of us need to take magnesium in a supplement. It's just one of those, it's hard to get in the diet because our soil is so depleted. So if people also add in a magnesium supplement, that will really help with the cortisol as well and the sleep. You have to identify what's going on at bedtime. And I see the teenagers taking really high doses of melatonin. They should have plenty of melatonin. There should be no reason for them to take melatonin. So it's just really listening to them and just figuring out what's going on. That's all. Okay, stress. So, you may have just heard me mention the adaptogens. So these are herbs. Adaptogenic herbs are wonderful herbs to help you adapt to stress. They're not going to take your stress away, but they're going to help you deal with it. So for instance, maybe at work a year ago, you had a lot of stress, but you were able to handle it. And now a year later, you're like, God, I just feel like I can't handle all this stress anymore. So when you add an adaptogenic herb in, that helps support your cortisol levels. And what I love about adaptogenic herbs is that maybe your cortisol is low, maybe your cortisol is high. For the herb, it doesn't matter. It just wants to bring homeostasis to the body. So these are just wonderful herbs to add in. There's actually many adaptogenic herbs, but these are 3 common ones and 3 very popular ones that you can find in your health food store as well. So ashwagandha is a wonderful one for people that need more energy during the day, but they also have the sleep issues at night. So they can take it morning and the evening to help with energy and to help with sleep. Rhodiola is another wonderful one. I'm going to use that more for my clients that also have depression with stress. And then the Asian ginseng, this typically was one that I use more for aging clients. So for the elderly, so for people that are very depleted, because this is very stimulating. So if someone has a little fatigue, I don't want to give them ginseng. I want to give it if they have extreme fatigue, like chronic fatigue syndrome. But I'm finding more younger people actually benefit from this herb. They're just so depleted from their standard American diet. So these are just 3 examples of ones we can add in for stress. And then again, remember, once we address the stress, we're going to support the immune system. Supplement form, a lot of these, because they're in the root, so you can have the root and take it as a tea, but roots, you're going to have to soak it longer, and it's going to be more difficult to get all the constituents into the hot water as a tea. So it's probably not as effective. You can do it, and I have it, and I do make blends for my clients in a tea. So for people that really need it, I prefer in a supplement form, and then you can do it as a tincture. So what they have found is if you do it in an alcohol base, you really get the extraction of the compounds into the alcohol, and that's a wonderful way to take it. But it's also very supportive to take it also in a capsule, so the herb can be ground up in a capsule. And it just depends on the person. I find, well, first of all, I don't like to do the alcohol ones. If I have any, clients with any addiction issues, I just stay away from the tinctures. It just depends. Some people like doing a whole bunch of tinctures and putting them in a little, shot glass and taking them up. And other people like the capsules. So it's really preference, but they have options. More on stress. I did want to mention kava because I love kava. So kava is an herb from the Fiji Islands, and so some other places where they actually don't drink alcohol, they get together and have kava instead. And I put kava bars on here because you can look up. So for instance, I live in Colorado, and I know in Denver there's a kava bar, in Colorado Springs, and I want to try them out. And so kava is very ceremonial in some other countries, and so making it and everybody getting together to have it. But kava, there's many different strains. I believe there's over 150 different strains of kava. But kava is very relaxing. So you can have strains that are really good, say for someone who's listening, who's an introvert, and they don't really like to go into social situations. There's a strain of kava they can drink before they go out, and it just makes them a little more comfortable, a little more relaxed, and they're a little easier for them to talk to other people. And then there's kava strains that you can take for bedtime. So especially for those people with the stress, again, the wired and tired feeling, take the kava and they just feel relaxed, and their body almost feels kind of heavy, just so they can finally just go to sleep. So and this is as a tea. So you can get kava in a supplement. I don't recommend it that way. For kava, the only way I recommend it is as a tea. And I will tell you, it doesn't taste very good. It's not a tea that you want to just sip. You're going to pretty much want to chug this tea. But it just has amazing benefits. And then the next thing is, it's called Now. There are these little cylinders, and you just turn them on, and they're tonal therapy. And the reason I mention this is because a lot of people just, have trouble with meditation. And so this is a really simple thing. You turn them on, they last for 3 minutes. You can hold them in your hands. I like to lie down in a dark area with them, and they're very relaxing. And I find this is also really good right before bedtime too, to kind of do this. And people can look them up. When I do in-person presentations, I bring them, and I'll tell you, this is like one of the favorite things. Everybody's touching them and listening, and wants to know where to get them. And again, I have no affiliation. People can just go and order those. So that's another one for stress. The emotion code technique. Now, I do the emotion code technique, but what I will tell people is that they can look up Dr. Bradley Nelson, and he's the one who started this. And so the philosophy is that if we're talking about a holistic approach, the way it looks at it is that we have trapped emotions, and so those trapped emotions can then lead to emotional issues, mental health issues, a lot of pain and physical issues. And if anybody thinks about it, right, we all have emotions from things that have gone on in our past, even if we've had not a lot of trauma, just little things, that have bothered us, and they don't go away. We tend to think they go away, but in reality, we kind of tuck them into a place. And one of the reasons why I got involved in this is when, I'll just tell you real quick. So prior to when my mother passed away, I was dealing with a lot of issues with her. It was getting extremely stressful, and I was up in New Jersey, and my last day there, I'd gone for a run, and I ended up with terrible heel pain. I mean, I for a year, I could barely walk, and I couldn't figure out why. I just went for one run, and that, and then someone mentioned to me, what was going on at the time of the heel pain. And I had just had a huge fight with my mother and all this. And then I started putting it together, how it's easier to pay attention to the heel pain than it is for me to pay attention to this other thing that's going on in my life. And I started doing more research, and I came upon the emotion code technique. And just, it really all made sense for me. And so what the emotion code technique uses, muscle testing, to identify trapped emotions in the body. And, I recommend people looking at his book. He doesn't do the in-person training right now, but, I had to go through training and practice on people, but people can just learn for themselves and do it on themselves, or, on their family, which is wonderful. And then the tapping. So it sounds a little familiar to the emotion code technique, but this is called the emotional freedom technique. And so what this is you tap on acupressure points on the body. And there's also a lot of tapping instructors out there too that can work with you, but people can look up tapping online, and they can find a lot of videos to help them. And I've used tapping in just really stressful situations, and I need to relax. And it really does. You need to be maybe in a private area, because it helps if you talk out loud as you do it. And when people watch the videos online, they'll understand. But these are wonderful ways to reduce the stress, but also to deal with trauma and anything else that's going on in your life. So I really encourage people just to look these up. They're just really good resources. Immune support nutrition. We know the standard American diet it's a nutrient deficient, food from a box or a bag, or, some other container, and it's not even food. I had a client who wanted to lose weight, and so she had ordered these, I guess, meals. They come to her in packages, and this is how she is able to lose weight. Ironically, she's done it before, and she gained the weight back, and she's doing it again. And so I had her, I said, can you just send me pictures of the ingredient label? And it was horrifying. I mean, there was no real food in it. It was literally chemicals and processed food. And so, it's a shame we've gotten so far removed from whole food. And so if you're eating the processed American, food, you're going to have a weak immune system, because you're just not getting the nutrients that you need. And again, it goes back to absorption and utilization. What's your gut health? What shape is it in? Because if you're not absorbing, if you're not utilizing the nutrients, then it's kind of a waste. So sometimes we have to dig deeper. Supplements quality does matter. I don't like people to do big box supplements or Amazon supplements. A lot of fakes, and people can go to consumerlabs.com. So what they do is they review supplements and then they report back to you on, the quality of a supplement. What I will say about that though is they review, so they look at the ingredients label and then they'll tell you, okay, does this product have what it says? But keep in mind, sometimes a product has what it says, but it's still not a quality product. We have to remember that a lot of nutrients are in different forms, and companies can put it in a very cheap form so that they can sell it to you at a cheaper price. But if it's in a cheap form, you may not utilize it and absorb it. So I want people to remember that. I rather see people buy a few supplements at a higher price than come to me with a whole, shopping bag of supplements from, a drugstore. So that's important. Again, variety. You have to have variety in your diet. A lot of us, we just eat the same things over and over. And if you want good immune health, you really have to just start experimenting. Just, go to the grocery store every week and try something new, look it up online. And so that just goes down to the whole foods and the veggies, we have to eat more vegetables in our diet. And then I put at the end on here onions, garlic, shiitake, mushrooms, and herbs, because all of those are very antiviral. So garlic and onions should be your friend right now while you are in quarantine. Very beginning quarantine, I think I was cooking onions and garlic and shiitake like every single day. Just give your body a big immune support. And then herbs, a lot of them are antimicrobial. And when I say antimicrobial, they're not only antiviral, but they're antibacterial and antifungal. So, you get all of this just in like one herb, such as oregano. So just really amazing. Food is just powerful. One of the things I want to touch on is your lymphatic system. So your lymphatic system is part of your immune system, and maybe you've had you have lymph nodes everywhere in your body, but maybe you've been like, oh, I got swollen, lymph nodes in my neck, or, they hurt. And that's part of your immune system, and it's trying to drain, it's trying to detoxify anything in you. So maybe you have a virus and it's trying to clear it out, and maybe you're blocked up. And so exercise is wonderful for this. And I find that people that have sluggish lymph system are the people that sit at their desk all day long and there's no movement. So you have to get movement in your day. That's the only way you're really going to support that lymphatic system, is movement. So exercise, yoga, right? Even foam rolling. So there's a lot of things to do that, but it's key. And then the other thing that we know with exercise, and they're still not really sure how it does this, but exercise improves your microbiome diversity. And this is huge. And we're going to talk about the microbiome. So exercise, we know, is good for mood, and we know, you lose weight and your blood pressure goes down. But 70% of your immune system is in your gut, and exercise is going to improve your gut health. Mindfulness. A lot of people just want to dive right in and get on a diet, pop some supplements for immune health. And if you don't have mindfulness, you need to start here, because if you don't, you're not going to be successful. So what I mean by mindfulness, and I'm talking about mindfulness really around food, you need to really focus on not only what you're eating, because you probably know, right? You're listening to this and you're like, oh yeah, I eat the standard American diet. But where are you eating? Are you eating in the car? Are you eating in front of the computer? Are you eating in front of the TV? Do you ever sit down as a family and eat at the table? And then how you eat. So have you ever been, at a meal with someone and like you picked up your fork and, their plate is empty, right? So they have just inhaled their food. And we all know somebody that inhales their food. So you need to be mindful of that too. Are you eating nice and slow so that you can digest your food, absorb those nutrients? If you inhale it in a few bites, you are not getting the benefit of your food. So you need to pay attention of that. Where are you eating? What are you eating? How fast are you eating? And then why are you eating? Are you eating because you're hungry? Are you eating because you're bored? Are you eating because you're stressed? So it's really good to identify those things. And what I have in here is food log versus an app. And in the beginning with my clients, I was pretty flexible. I have a little template of a food log, but a lot of my younger clients, you know, just felt like I was out of date. They wanted to put everything into the app. And then now I'm stricter. I'm like, no, you got to do the paper. You have to do it the old way. And the reason is because that goes back to mindfulness. People are just clicking things and putting it in there. They have no clue what they're eating. They have no clue why. They have no clue how it makes them feel when they put it in there. So now I have people write it down. They have to write down how they feel when they eat that food. They have to tell me where they ate. They have to tell me how long they ate. And so this is really going to mindfulness. And you can do this yourself. You know, I tell people just do 3-5 days. You know, just keep track for yourself. And once you go through your own food log, you're gonna be like, wow, you know, and you'll be able to identify, you know, where you can make some changes. So let's talk about if we get sick and what we can do. I know a lot of people are interested in this. Oh my gosh, you know, there's COVID. You know, it seems like now we're at least getting to the end of it, but flu and viruses will be with us forever. So we really need to know what to do to support our immune system. I think vitamin C, everybody knows, vitamin C is very immune supportive. So if you feel a cold coming on, you can take 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C and you can take it every 15 minutes to bowel tolerance. And if you do that, a lot of times you can knock a cold out even before it, you know, it gets you. So you know how you feel like, oh, I feel like I'm a little run down? Just start taking some vitamin C. Liposomal vitamin C is really good as well. And I'll keep some liposomal vitamins in my fridge more for emergency. But you can just keep, vitamin C is actually really cheap. Just get a big bottle of vitamin C, keep it on hand when you're sick. But I like people to take vitamin C daily as well. A lot of times you can just get it in a multi, but sometimes we need more. And as you can see on there, so anybody who is a heavy drinker, a smoker, or again, if you're under a lot of stress, you're gonna need more vitamin C. It's really gonna use it up. You can get a lot of it from your diet, but the issue with your diet is that, so they've looked at foods from, I think it was around the 1950s to foods from 1950s to now. And across the board, they all have less vitamins in them. So our food is not as nutrient dense as it was years ago. So we also need to keep that in mind. And that's why I think we need to supplement more than we used to. Vitamin A is wonderful for immune support. But here's the thing, a lot of people think about beta carotene, and so beta carotene is part of vitamin A. But so for immune support, you really want vitamin A. And what I want to stress with this is that if you are listening and you are a vegan or a vegetarian, you're getting beta carotene, but you're not getting vitamin A. So vitamin A is preformed. So you have beta carotene that comes from, you know, your oranges, your reds, right? Like your squash, your peppers, things like that. But then animals will eat all these foods, all these, you know, beta carotene rich foods, and then they convert them into the vitamin A. And so that's why vitamin A is called preformed vitamin A. So you can only get that if you are a meat eater. You're going to get it from dairy. You're going to get it from meats. You're going to get it from, especially the organ meats will be the richest. And you're going to get it from things like grass-fed butter. So a lot of times for immune support, if they're vegan or vegetarian, they'll have to supplement with vitamin A. Vitamin D, I think we also know vitamin D is wonderful for immune support. We know it's also good for bone support. If you have an autoimmune condition, you really need to make sure your vitamin D levels are adequate. What I do want to say is you should know your vitamin D levels before you ever supplement with vitamin D. When you go for your annual blood work, just say, hey, you know, test me for my vitamin D. Now, I have the ranges on here that I like to see. I'm going to tell you Western medicine. If you're at 30 ng/ml or ng/dl, they will tell you that it's adequate. I do like to see it higher. I like to see it closer to 60, especially if someone does have a weak immune system or an autoimmune condition. I like to go higher if there's other health issues, and even above 80, say for something such as cancer. So, but that's a nice sweet spot there. What I do want to say though is the majority of people aren't going to get it from the sun. I've even done tests on myself, and it's harder than you think to get enough vitamin D. You really have to be out in the sun and have all your skin exposed. And the thing is, a lot of people now have low cholesterol. Maybe, a lot of people, just because of statins, they have their cholesterol's too low, and you need adequate cholesterol molecules on your skin in order for you to absorb your vitamin D. The other thing I do want to say about your vitamin D, again, I think this is one that the majority of us need to supplement, but if you are a small person, say you're trying to get up to the 60 NGDL, and you're a small person, you may need only 2,000 IU. And say I have like a, 6'3", 300-pound person who also needs to get up there, they're going to need a lot more vitamin D to get to the same level as you. So I want to stress that with vitamin D, we also need to take into consideration your size. Zinc and selenium. Typically, if you're taking a multivitamin, you're probably getting enough zinc in there. You don't really have to add it in just for general health. If you are sick, you can up your dose of zinc, but what I really like for zinc is it's called, they're lozenges, and so it's zinc acetate. There's only one company I know that makes zinc acetate lozenges. And so if you are feeling sick, this is another one just to keep on hand. If you're feeling sick, just start popping the lozenges, and they're really big and thick. You could take about 4 of them a day, and that's really also going to help to knock out the cold. If you are already sick, say you're 2-3 days into a cold or a virus, then don't bother with the lozenges. They're really not going to be that effective for you. And again, we know smoking, alcohol is going to deplete it. Athletes, which I didn't mention this, so if someone is listening on here and they're an endurance athlete, or they're training for, a triathlon or something like that, your body's always going to need more nutrients than someone else. It's really going to use them up. So keep that in mind, not just the smokers and the heavy drinkers, also the people that are, see themselves as really healthy. That's stress on the body as well when we do intense exercise and a lot of it. So keep that. I want to mention that. Quercetin does help the zinc get into the cells. So for someone who, really needs a lot of immune support, quercetin is a phytonutrient in foods. And so you can take it as a supplement, but you can just add in apples and onions, which are wonderful. And it's in more of the outer layer. So don't peel your apple. And a lot of people with onion, they take a lot of that outer onion off. Just peel, that peel off the onion, but don't take a ton of layers off your onion, because those outer layers are where most of the benefit is of your onion, especially for the quercetin. So keep them on there. And then zinc, actually the highest food that has the highest content of zinc is oysters. But majority of people aren't eating oysters every day. So red meat is your second best source, but even pumpkin seeds will have some. Again, plant sources of some of our nutrients are harder to absorb. So if someone on here is a vegan or vegetarian, again, there's some things you typically will have to supplement more than a meat eater, okay? The other one is selenium, and I really never thought of selenium too much for immune support. I think of it more for thyroid support. We need selenium to convert our T4 into T3. So for anybody with hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, selenium is really important. And Brazil nuts are I think it's 6, if you eat 6 Brazil nuts a day, you'll get the 100 micrograms of selenium. So you can do that instead of taking a supplement. But selenium is really going to be wonderful for immune support too. And some of these are just really good in the wintertime. So you could say, okay, in the summer I'm really good, but maybe in the winter, I'm getting 3-4 colds in the winter, so you can start in October and continue some of these supplements maybe, through March. So you just cover your bases. So you don't necessarily have to do these all year round. Andrographis, I love this herb. If you're going to buy it in a supplement, which you typically will have to buy this in a supplement form, it should have aerial parts, and the leaf is going to be where the greatest concentration of the compounds are. So, it stimulates the antibodies to fight off invading pathogens. So, think of that as, the soldiers in your body that are like, hey, okay, I see these invaders and I'm going to get rid of them. So Andrographis is a wonderful herb to add in, especially for anybody with upper respiratory infections. I typically add Andrographis in only in the winter. I don't take it at all in the summer, but in the winter I do. Or if I'm traveling, if I'm doing a lot of flying, then I'll start my Andrographis a week before, and I'll take it all through my trip. So it's a wonderful for immune support. And so it was used in the flu epidemic of 1919. So I want to stress that these herbs, before they had all these powerful medicines, these herbs were wonderful for viruses. Okay, so for COVID, what they found in some studies is that it has taxanthin. I always have trouble saying it. And so this is from algae. So if you've ever seen shrimp and salmon with a nice pink color, that's the wild caught ones, not the farm raised, because that color is artificially in there. But they get that color from all the algae they're eating. And so they found with COVID, I believe it's with medication though, that by adding in this herb, that they can speed the recovery time of COVID. And so it's just another wonderful one to add in. And so what this really is an antioxidant. And if people aren't really familiar, when I keep talking about antioxidants, is you have free radicals in the body, you have antioxidants in the body. You always want balance between the two of them. But so if you are an inflamed person, if you have, so for instance, this lowers your C-reactive protein, which is a blood marker for inflammation. So if you have a lot of inflammation in the body, you probably have a lot of free radicals. You want to add in some antioxidant support. So this is a wonderful herb to add in there to start reducing the inflammation. Again, you're not going to get rid of free radicals, but what's happening in society is we have too many free radicals and too few antioxidants in the body. So we want to bring that back into balance. And people need to remember, here in the United States, we are a very sick country, and so we need to do something about it. And so herbs can be beneficial. Again, it goes back to diet first, but herbs can be wonderful to add in. I think COVID-19 has really impacted, I think, everybody's mental health, whether it's fear, right? You're so scared of going out anywhere, or, the stress of working from home and, having multiple people work from home, or now all of a sudden you're the teacher for your kids, or, the worry, your business is going under, you're not making money. And depression is a huge one. So even for people who are depressed before, and now you're in isolation and quarantine, this has been so terrible for those people. And like I put on here, so suicide hotline calls have gone up by 300%. That is a lot. So we know, and we know that COVID has had a huge impact on our mental health. And I'm not going to go into all the mental health today, but what I want to stress is that when you have that mental health impact, when you have that fear, that stress, that anxiety, that worry, that depression, all of that is going to suppress your immune system. So your immune system is going to get weaker. So you have all that on your body, combined with now you're not out in society. Like, we need to touch people. Touch people actually supports our immune system. So now we're isolated. We have all this fear and this worry. Our immune systems are just shot. So I want people to really keep that in mind, that your immune system could even be, even though you think you've been home and you haven't been anywhere, your immune system may be in worse shape now than it was before COVID. And I really want to stress that, because when society opens up and everybody goes out, my concern is people are going to get sick because we've been isolated so long, and we have a suppressed immune system because of all the other, issues going on. So, but we really talked about what you can do for all this. So again, stress reduction technique. I love the adaptogenic herbs, the little now things, have a cup of kava. Again, where's your support system? Who are your friends? Who can you talk to? And you do have to address your immune system. So when we're under stress and all these mental health issues, it's really hard to eat healthy, but you have to think in the back of your mind, if you don't eat healthy, your situation is going to get worse. So we need to really force ourselves or have someone help us eat better. I cannot get through a talk if I do not talk about your microbiome. This is really important, especially for immune health. And it's amazing, you know, over 70% of your immune system is in your gut. So keep that in mind. If your gut is not in good shape, you do not have a good immune system. Okay, you're always going to be at a disadvantage. I want you, if you're not familiar with the microbiome, some people are, you know, there's so much information about it now, but I want you to think of it as a garden. And so you may have a garden with one plant and a lot of weeds in there. That's a pretty poor microbiome. You want a microbiome with, you know, 20, 30, 40 different plants, and you want, you know, maybe 20, 30, 40 of each plant. And then you only want a weed here and there cropping up in your microbiome, in your garden. So that would be a really beautiful microbiome gut health. So just think of it that, just think of a garden in there. And I'm going to jump to the bottom first. So, because I realized it may not make sense on the top there. So your microbiome, you need prebiotics, probiotics, and then your probiotics will produce postbiotics. So I'm going to jump down there. Prebiotics come again from your diet. So if you have a nice fiber-rich diet, if you have, again, a lot of the onions and the garlic, you have a very diverse diet with your vegetables and your leafy greens, that is going to be fuel for the bacteria in your gut. So again, like your garden, right? You need really good soil in your garden for everything to flourish. So think of that. Your prebiotics are like that soil, right? You need soil, water, sun. So you need food for the good bacteria. Now, how do you get that good bacteria? Well, a lot of it comes from your mother, so it comes from birth, but that's only 1/3 of it. The other 2/3 are yours, and it really, your environment, your diet, stress will all shape your microbiome. And they found, I was reading a study, they took some women from a tribe in Thailand, and I've actually been to this tribe before, so I've seen their diet, which is really amazing. But they took them, brought them to America. I think it was 8 months later, they reevaluated their gut microbiome again, completely changed, where they had a lot of diversity, a lot of different strains. It completely changed by being in the US. So one of the things you can do if you're like, you know, I don't know where to start, I don't know how to get all these vegetables into my diet, you can go to the store, you can buy a whole bunch of different vegetables, you can chop them up, you can put them in a blender, and then mix them all together, and you can eat like just a tablespoon of those every day. And then you're getting this diversity. You don't have to say, oh my gosh, you know, how am I going to eat all these different vegetables today? Just take a little bit of each one every day, and that's beautiful for your gut health. And that's a really simple way to get them into you. So then your probiotics, how do you get all these good bacteria? A lot of people, I will tell to do a good probiotic supplement, but you know, those can be expensive, and then people aren't really sure what to buy. So for people that can handle fermented foods, they can try drinking kombucha, the low sugar kombucha. You know, definitely read the labels. They can do fermented soy like miso or tempeh, fermented sauerkraut, kimchi, which is fermented vegetables. So there's a lot of different ways we can really get diversity in your gut. And then the postbiotics. So these are really wonderful, and they're still doing a lot of research on this. So still, they don't have all the information on it yet. But so what will happen, so now you feed your good bacteria, they give off a fuel, and that's the postbiotics. And so what that does, those directly impact your immune system. So in order for your gut to support your immune system, you have to give it the prebiotics and the prebiotics and the probiotics in order for your body to have the postbiotics that are going to support your immune system. So I hope that makes sense. Just some quick facts, as I said, right? 1/3 of your gut is genetic, but man, you got 2/3 that you can work on. So don't think, you know, a lot of people always give me the genetic card. Oh, well, you know, this is genetics. No, no, no. There's a lot you can do, okay? And so, yeah, in 3 days, your gut can go from good to bad, or it can go from bad to good. So, just think when you travel, a lot of people, when they go away, right, they go completely off their diet and they think, oh, it's just a week. But just think that we can really impact your, your gut health and then your immune health. So I know a lot of people want, I know they want to enjoy themselves, but just be mindful that, you may have quite a bit of work to do when you get back from your vacation. And then yes, 50% of your B vitamins and your vitamin K come from a healthy gut. So again, this goes back to some of your nutrients your body produces. And so if you're not making them, right, if your gut's not healthy, you're not making them. Okay. And this is just a quote from a microbiologist, but he said having low diversity in the gut is really a sign just across the board of disease. So pretty much we always have to address gut health with whatever's going on with you. So that's it. I just want everybody, to know that food is first. So we talked about supplements, we talked about herbs, but if you don't have a good diet, don't bother putting those supplements in yet. I think it's a waste. I think you really need to focus on the food first and the mindfulness. And then remember, you're an individual. So, whatever your friend says, whatever they do, that's great. But just remember, it may not work for you. And just do quality, address the stress. Get outside, get some fresh air, and remember your whole body. I think we've gotten away from that. You have a foot doctor and a doctor, for your ears, you have a doctor for everything. So we need to start looking at everything together and how it's connected versus doing this whole piecemeal system.
I suffer from seasonal allergies and want to know which herbs are good to use.
So as I mentioned, the quercetin, and I mentioned quercetin is in onions and apples. And so quercetin is a wonderful one to add in. But typically, if someone's going to look for it in a supplement, it'll come with nettles. So nettle leaf is also wonderful for seasonal allergies. And a lot of people have nettle growing in their yard. So if they can actually get the nettle leaf and dry it, is also wonderful. So I use nettle leaf every day in my tea. So I can buy nettle leaf. We have natural grocers out here, and I can buy it dry, and I put it in there. And so that's wonderful for allergies. But what I want to say about allergies too for people is if they have a local health food store, and I encourage them to go to, small and local. If they sell bee pollen, or if they have a little local farm that has bee pollen, and I forget the radius, but you have to get your bee pollen from a certain radius by you, because you want the pollens in your environment that are in that bee pollen. And so you start out with only one little pellet of bee pollen because you want to make sure you don't have a reaction, an allergy to it. But if you have no issue, then you can take about 1/4 to 1/2 a teaspoon of the bee pollen every day. And so if you do that, for the full year before, say the end of allergy season, and you're going to support your body for the next allergy season, because what's happening, you're getting almost like an allergy shot. You're getting a little dose of that pollen every day into you, so that you will start building up, this immune response to the pollens that are in your environment. So I like the nettles, I like, the quercetin, but I love people to add in the bee pollen as well. And the bonus is bee pollen is very energizing and is rich in B vitamins. So it's, kind of a win-win situation. So
What are some ways to maintain good mental health while being quarantined?
So I think we touched on that. So, really doing good mental health again, whatever relaxes you. So whether it's exercise, yoga, stretching, I'm a firm believer in that for mental health. But again, also adding in those adaptogenic herbs, or finding out what you need help with your mental health. Is it anxiety? Is it depression? So it's really going to depend on, mental health is such a broad term. If someone was able to narrow that down, I could probably give a little more detail, but, start there with the stress and really getting the fresh air and the mindfulness in there. And then I would have some other suggestions depending on what the specifics were.
Great. Best vitamins for women to take daily.
So that's really again, it comes down to individualism. So I know women think, okay, they need something different than men, um, but everybody needs something different. So I I think I think across the board, a lot of people need a good multivitamin, not like a, you know, a poor quality generic one, but a good quality multivitamin, then some magnesium and vitamin D. For women, they should know their iron levels to see if they need iron. You know, more women than men are going to be deficient in iron, but you don't want to have a multi with iron in there without knowing your iron level, because if your iron levels end up being elevated, well, you have to donate blood. There's no way to get your iron levels down unless you're donating blood. So I like to be really cautious with the iron. So I think women should always look for an iron-free supplement, and then get their iron tested and know if they have to add iron in or not. But it's really hard to say what for women versus men. Again, it just comes down to the individual person.
I want to begin a summer detox to shrink my stomach. What supplements or herbs are good to use?
So, okay. I don't support any of those detoxes. A lot of them are just really strong, potent herbs in a box. And what they're going to do basically is just cause you to go to the bathroom a lot. So that's really all they're doing. It's a lot of fiber, a lot of these harsh herbs that can actually be really dangerous. Your body can get too dependent on them. So for the person who's asking that question, instead, they really need to look at their diet. If they're trying to lose some belly weight, you know, again, it has to go back to the mindfulness. So if they do a detox or they do some herbs and they do lose the weight, the odds are they're just going to put it right back on. So I don't have an answer for that because I really wouldn't support even going that route.
I want to incorporate herbs into my daily life, but I have such a busy schedule. How can I implement herbs into my diet?
Okay, I think that's a great question. And I'm so glad someone is asking that. So one of the easiest ways is open up your cabinet, and I guarantee you have a ton of spices and herbs in there. And I guarantee you there's bottles you bought like for a recipe that you've never touched again, and you're like, what the heck is that? So when you're cooking, really start exploring, you know, what's in there. You know, look at these spices and herbs instead of using just salt and pepper. You know, just explore. So that's a really simple way when they're cooking, right? They don't have time to really add in herbs. Look in your cabinet and just start using them. Other simple ways is, you know, now that we're in spring, if you can go somewhere, get a few herb plants. They're super easy. Just keep them in their little, you know, pots, and you know, buy a couple, buy maybe some cilantro or basil or whatever, and, you know, cut them up and add them to recipes. And that's a nice way to get some fresh herbs in there. And you don't have to do much work for it. And then the other way is tea. So if someone has a local herb shop or a local health food store, a lot of them will have loose herbs, and you can start with something really simple like peppermint, and, you know, make a peppermint tea, or you know, just explore maybe, you know, some different types of green teas, and, you know, just put them in the tea, just put some hot water in there, and enjoy them that way. So when I first started out in nutrition, and our local health food store has a whole aisle of bulk herbs, and I was just overwhelmed. Just like, I don't know what to do with any of this. And so I just started little by little exploring them, taking one home and figuring out how to use it. And you can't see from this video, so my other shelf, I have rows and rows of herbs in dark jars. And so I'll just, okay, what tea am I going to make? You know, and I just pour some in. So that's a really simple way to do it. But I would say just start with your spice cabinet. So they've been probably sitting there forever. So start using them.
What is holistic nutrition, and how does it differ from a regular nutritionist or dietitian?
So holistic nutrition, again, as I mentioned, we're looking at the whole body. So like when I work with someone in that initial consult, we could be together 90 minutes to up to 3 hours. And so we're looking at every piece of the body. So we're looking at, the physical piece and the emotional piece, and, everything is connected. And so like I gave the example, you go to a foot doctor, right? He's only looking at your foot, but maybe what's going on in your foot is from somewhere way up in the body. So we want to look at the whole entire body. So that's what I mean by holistic. And so another example of that is, because I help people with mental health issues, what I tell people, say they come to me and they have depression, I don't look at depression as a diagnosis. I look at it as a symptom. And so we have to figure out what is going on in the body that's causing that symptom. So for instance, someone could come to me with depression and typically they'll have something else. Maybe they have gut digestive issues, they have a skin issue, right? So we need a holistic approach. I'm not going to look at the depression. I'm not going to look at the skin over here and the gut over here. They're typically symptoms of the same underlying thing. And that's holistic. And I want to stress that because the education of a dietitian is guided by Western medicine. So a dietitian is there more in a doctor's office to support you while you're on medication. Now, I'm not going to tell someone to stop taking their meds, but my goal is to bring the body back to balance where you don't need symptom management. I think nutritionist, holistic nutrition is a very whole body approach, where I think, again, the other approach may be more piecemeal, just looking at one little condition. So I hope that answered that.
Why would someone reach out to a holistic nutritionist? What else do you help with besides autoimmune conditions? And so I think you just said you help people with depression. So what would be some of these symptoms that are present when somebody comes to see you or book a session with you?
So most people, when I tell people that I specialize in mental health and then I say I'm a nutritionist, they kind of do, huh? I don't get that. So again, we're really, all of it is the same. So if it's an autoimmune condition, if it's a mental health condition, if it's a gut digestive condition, or sometimes people just come to me with random symptoms and they don't know what's going on, or they've been to the doctor, they've had so many tests done and the doctor says you're fine, but obviously they don't feel fine or they wouldn't be in my office. So again, we have to look deeper, and we do have to do some testing that a typical Western doctor won't do. And I work with people because it depends on, what they can afford. But it's also listening, so the type of people I see too, the reason the appointments are also so long is because they've gone from practitioner to practitioner. They've spent maybe 7 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and they just want to be heard. So by the time they come to me, they'll have a stack of tests, they'll have a stack of questions, and there's this relief, oh my God. So it's listening and it's putting it all together. So I hope that answered that. So that's kind of what I do. I put everything together.
That's amazing, right? And that's what we're doing at Sophia Health. A lot of people don't understand that you can have mental health issue and go see a holistic nutritionist. And that's exactly why Sophia Health exists, is to put the practitioners together. So you don't have to spend your time trying to find clients who you can help when you have sleep disorders to something that's like skin conditions, psoriasis, and depression. So I think that's incredible and hugely impactful, and it's the reason we asked you to be here today. So
thank you. Yeah, because I think everybody thinks just weight loss, and I don't do weight loss. So
yeah, that's just my pet peeve also, when it's actually affordable to have a personal nutritionist or holistic nutritionist. You just have to find them. Everybody thinks it's just to understand carbs, and I was like, it has nothing to do with that. It's so much more the whole person concept, the individualized care, and you spend up to 3 hours with people. That's unheard of.
Yeah, I don't see too many people in a day because of that, but you know what, it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. I wouldn't do it any differently. So
yeah. What does a session with you entail, and will I need more than one?
So typically, well, what I tell people right up front is that if they think they need one appointment, they shouldn't even bother coming. Because it's like going to a gym, right? Are you going to go to the gym once and, be super fit after, one time in the gym? You need to be invested and you need to work. And I will tell you, nutrition is hard because when you go to a doctor, it's easy, right? All you have to do is pop a pill. They give you a prescription and, oh, this is super easy. But when they come to me, there will be changes. And so it is work, but we will work together and I support them, the whole way through. But I will tell you it's challenging, and the average person needs about 4 consults with me. Now, so I like to do packages with people because I want them to be committed right off the bat. So that's how I work. And then if they need another package, we do another package. I will say on average, though, it's 4. Sometimes people will need 2 or 3 packages, but majority of people, we can really accomplish everything just spacing it out in 4 sessions. And the first session, like I said, is always going to be long. There's so much information to gather, and it's really just about me listening and hearing what's going on with them. And then the next sessions get easier, they get shorter, they start getting the hang of everything. So, as the process goes on, everything seems to, get better and easier and improve.
So you mentioned testing. Is this the testing that they have to get from their doctor before they come to you, or do you have any tests that they can take on their own?
Mm-hmm. It depends. So a lot of times they come with me with their basic blood work. And so I will look at that, and I like having that if they do have it, because then I can look and see what the doctor didn't do. Because usually after I listen to someone, then I'm like, all right, they should have tested this, this, and this. And if it's under insurance, they can order lab work, blood work through me. But if they do have insurance, I'm going to be really mindful of that. And if they can go back to their doctor and get more testing, I will. But there's other testing that doctors won't do. So for instance, I really like a test called the GI map. And that's really looking at the gut microbiome and finding out if there's, candida or parasites or H. pylori or, signs for, IBD, or I'll do an organic acid test. I'll do food sensitivity testing. And your typical doctor isn't going to do that. So, there's some that we do need to add in. But again, I'm mindful of the cost. Maybe we need to wait a while, try some things. So it just depends on the person. So I will do testing. But blood work can show us a lot. Blood work is a really good start.
Is there any evidence that supports using food to cure an autoimmune condition?
Yes, there is proof, but remember, you're going to see fewer studies on food than you will on medications. And you have to look at who's funding the studies. Studies are very extensive, very time consuming. So, broccoli isn't going to have as much money behind it as, a medication company to do a study. So you're just not going to see as many. But in regards to autoimmune, there are. So for instance, if anyone here is listening, they probably have heard of the autoimmune paleo diet. And that, I believe there was a study showing, so the autoimmune paleo diet removes, one of the things they remove are grains. And I know there's a study that the grains reduced inflammation in autoimmune. It was a study in mice though. But for instance, people with Hashimoto's, which is another autoimmune condition, a lot of people think they have to avoid goitrogens, which is a compound that's in a lot of vegetables. So a lot of good foods they would be taking out of their diet. And recent studies show that's not the case, that goitrogens don't impact, your T4 converting into your T3. There's no issue. And in fact, if we go back to the, just glutathione, which is very immune supportive, it shows that it increases your glutathione, which also supports your thyroid. So yes, there's information, and not just on autoimmune. I could go into studies on saffron, the herb, and all the recent studies on that for depression, or broccoli sprouts and how they detox your body of car exhaust and, secondhand smoke. So yes, there's studies. You're just not going to find as many as you would if it was a drug.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for your wonderful questions. We appreciate it. And if you want to get in touch or find Karen, you can look her up on Sophia Health. But thank you for being with us this afternoon. And we will chat with you later.